Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're all very welcome to another Sunday night special. And Sunday night specials won't be specials without the RedFellas. Hope you're all very, very well. Hope you're all keeping safe. Hope you're keeping warm, believe it or not. I mean, I'll ask the rest of the guys, but it's what is it out here? It's I can't see right now, but it's quite nippy where I am in my part of the world. So yeah, that's when you know sort of summertime is over. Um, but yeah, you're all very, very welcome. A lot to get through tonight. Even though Liverpool didn't play this weekend, we had a very important game in midweek, and now we have embark on a little bit of a break. But we can't stop talking about Liverpool just because there's a little break, right, lads? And I've got the main fellas, the red fellas, back to talk all things Liverpool. Conroy, you all right, fam?
Yeah, no, doing good, mate. Doing good. I was at a wedding yesterday, so I'm a bit tired today. I think I seen Keith smiling there. He knows what I mean. So yeah, it was a long ceremony. They're from very early yesterday, so doing well. The weather is a bit cold, Grizz, but let's be honest, I get the mick taken out of me every week because I'm from Scotland in the weather. So if anything, I should be used to the cold weather. So
What is it? What is it? Is it a bit nippy? Was it just me? Am I just old age, or has
no,
it
it's
actually?
definitely been colder at night. I think the weather's still been quite warm during the day, some sunny days, but at night it's definitely getting a bit cooler. Start to get the jumpers on at night. So you need to watch cost of living crisis. We need to watch out for the heating as well. So, but no, it's
Absolutely.
definitely getting colder. Definitely.
Ilyas reminding us that we're eighth. We'll get into it. We know where we are. We know who we are as
Arsenal won the
well.
league though. Arsenal won the league if they're not.
Exactly.
If they won the league,
Mick with the early guilty message because he's not joining us. Yes, the boys still traveling back from London and full of major man flu. Not ideal. Yeah, we wish you the best. But we were just discussing off air. He's asking us about what was it called?
the Power of the Rings. It's the Lord of the Rings.
The
spin-off.
Power of the Rings. It's a spin-off for kids, basically, as far as I know. He asked me. He asked Twitter in general, what does everyone think of the Power of the Rings? I'm really enjoying it, and I replied, "Grow up." to which he replied with a meme of someone showing the index finger to me. But I enjoyed it. I love Mick. Hope you get well soon, Mick. But grow up. Dinner says evening, Grizz, evening, everyone. Absolutely. Rings of Power. That's the one. Come on. Grizz has no taste. I'm telling you, nothing will ever top Game of Thrones in that genre. It's the same genre, right, Conroy? I've not got it wrong, have I?
No, I would say it is. I mean, it's obviously it's a Lord of the Rings, isn't it? So that came out a long time ago, but I'd say it kind of falls into that fantasy genre, isn't it? Dragons.
Yeah, you would like it. You should check a couple of episodes out. You might get.
Do you know what it is, Keith? Do you know what it is? I may like it because, as I was telling you guys, Game of Thrones for me can't be topped, and I'm one of those guys that if you've seen the best, everything else just seems you're wasting your time, and I haven't got time to waste. You know me, I'm a very busy man. So if it's better than Game of Thrones, people tell me. If it's better than Game of Thrones, I'll watch it. Steve's looking at us. I'm guessing Steve's on my wavelength, but we'll find out. Steve,
I'm on your wavelength, absolutely, mate. Don't you worry about that. Anyway, enjoy, Mick. Not to cast aspersions on your TV choices and what you watch, mate, but it's just not for me.
Nah, fair enough. Not fair enough. Fair enough. Not for me. Keith, obviously, you're loving this shit. You're into everything sort of mad, childish, immature. That's you. Not you, but you're into that.
I'll still watch an episode of Pokemon. You know what I mean? Pokemon was I was a big cartoon show fan. Courage the Cowardly Dog, Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls.
Johnny Bravo was good. Johnny Bravo was good.
I like my kid shit.
Well, Klopp sipping Arsenal tear says Rings of Power is a 6.5 out of 10.
Ooh,
so I don't know about that. Okay, I'm gonna sound either really naive or whatever I sound. I'm gonna ask Jamie. Jamie, Game of Thrones. Is it big out in the USA? Was it big out in the USA? Do you even know about it? Now, if I'm naive and just tell me so.
No, it was a huge world phenomenon.
Okay.
I mean, I got into it at the back end of 2018, but I remember going to some of my fraternity brothers' houses on Sundays for watching NFL football. And then right at 6 p.m. on the West Coast, when it would be 9 p.m. on the East Coast, the Game of Thrones episode would drop and everyone would turn off the football, the American football, and turn on Game of Thrones. And this was like 2016, 2017. So absolutely huge show.
Interesting. I just, you know what I mean? It was massive. It was huge. Don't get me wrong. I didn't start off thinking that it's the one, but then, you know, you try it because the phenomenon of social media, like mixed tweet, right? Sometimes it entices you to just maybe try it. And Steve, honestly, look, I know me and you on the same wavelength and probably the same wavelength, and I know you're nodding away. Maybe it's too late, but I'm telling you now, it's fantastic. It is fantastic. And I'm not into dragons.
Yeah, that's my issue. You see, I've not watched
exactly.
Any of them. I've not watched any of the Lord of the Rings. I've not watched any of Harry Potter.
Yeah, but it's different. See, Game of Thrones. The whole point Game of Thrones got massive was you couldn't guess what was going to happen. It was so unpredictable. Like no main character was safe.
No, I know what Steve means though, because I'm not into dragons.
What happens in my house, right? We get up in the morning, we go to work, we come home, we have tea. I'm then subjected to 2 hours of British soap operas on the television via my wife. We then walk the dog for an hour and we go to bed, and it's a sausage factory, mate. It happens every single day in the same routine. This is my release. This is my escapism. Unfortunately, there's not enough time in my life for Game of Thrones, mate. I would have to do so much binge watching to catch up. You wouldn't believe it's possible, mate.
Has anyone ever wondered, though, with regard to soaps, right? See Albert Square in EastEnders, right? If you ever looked at the accent statistics and murders that happen on that street, you think someone would be like, I've got a bit of an issue here because we've been about for 25 years and about nearly 100 people have died. You know,
why do you want to move into those areas?
You know what? I was going to say to Grizz, if he knows anyone who's got a load of washing machines, because we'll just take them down there in the van and sell them to all the people who live there, because no one's got a washing machine in Albert Square, mate. They still laundry. How much money would you make?
Business, Arthur Daily. I like that. Mick says, Grizz, you better watch Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is serious. Mick, give me more Breaking Bad type series to watch, please. I'm awaiting your messages. I want a whole heap of because Breaking Bad for me is one of the elite. It's one of the
big question now, Grizz, though, with Better Call Saul, because I thought that ended very well. I thought that
everyone really loves Better Call Saul. I'm sticking with Breaking Bad.
I would just Breaking Bad, but I thought Better Call Saul was brilliant. Like
not much in it. Like look, people are going through it now, telling me everything. Look, let's get back to the football chat. Of course, first and foremost, we are RedFellas, and RedFellas, as you all guys know, if you don't know, you're about to know right now, is sponsored by the one and only yourfutcard.com. Guys, go and check these guys out. You can create your own cards like this. You can create your own football prints like these, and you can create your own custom flags, anything you want, any memory that you may have, any favorite players that you may have, any favorite child, every favorite sibling, any favorite parent. Get the pictures on board, get their stats, make them realistic like my ones, as you can see later on in the background. Make sure they're realistic stats like mine. Don't make them unrealistic, but choose your design, your background. Fantastic quality, fantastic design, fantastic price. But even if it ain't a fantastic price, the advantage of you being a subscriber is you type in RedFellas into the discount code and you get 15% off any purchase. Some of these flags, it doesn't have to be Liverpool, it doesn't have to be You'll Never Walk Alone. You can get anything printed on them. We've got a lovely one that's RedFellas. I still haven't hung it up, so I apologize for that. But guys, these are some of the sizes in comparison. So obviously, you know, if you're really, if you really love yourself, get one of these big ones. And then obviously you can get different sizes. Fantastic quality. Go check them out. If you're still confused, because I've explained it really well, but if you're still confused, all you got to press is chat with us. They'll help you track your order, preview your design, ask them how long it will take, anything you want. Brilliant website. Brilliant people. Help them to help us, and everyone's a winner, baby. Go check them out. yourfutcard.com. Guys, how are we? We're good. I'll answer for all of you. But we weren't good last time we spoke. last time we spoke, I remember, because we didn't have a league game last weekend, was unfortunately the session after Napoli. Conrad, I want to come to you first. Going into Ajax, obviously, because of the postponement of this week's league fixtures, we all hoped for a response. Did you expect a response, or was you still unsure kind of where we are mentally and physically going into the Ajax game?
Yeah, I did think there'd be a response, Grizz. I did think there'd still be issues though. I think Joe Matip coming back in, it made me have more confidence. I know the Napoli game, he comes on, we concede straight away, but overall I think he improved that. It was a bad situation, and I think Matip makes a big difference coming to this team. That ability to go forward with the ball, pick out passes. So I had that in mind going into this game. And I've obviously, with the preview, the conferences, the press conferences, you could tell Klopp obviously had that in mind as well, that he needed a reaction from his players. So I was expecting that. However, I don't think it's like, what is it? It's not just like putting a switch on at the moment. It's not like that. There's errors that are reoccurring, and we need to try and eradicate that. So I still thought there would be some issues defensively, because our full team, as Steve usually said last week, we're probably all out of form, our back four. So that was my thoughts going into the game. Thought we could get the win. The way it worked out was kind of the way I seen it going. Didn't expect to have to wait to the very, very end of the game to get the winner, but I thought it would have been a tough match, but we would have had enough. And to be fair to Ajax, I did know they have some good players, and they always do. That's their system. They'll sell their best players, they'll buy young, and keep bringing them through. And people are always shocked when they do it. That's the one thing I don't get. Like, they consistently do this model, and it's worked out for them. So I knew they had a few good players, and I wasn't surprised when it's Kudus, that's the way you pronounce it, scores that goal. But I did think, going into it, the B errors, few mistakes, but we'd have enough to get the win.
Guys, this is poor, isn't it? It's a poor ratio. 31 likes, and there's over 130 of you. Come on, let's get it to 100 likes straight away before we go any further. That would be the smashing little target accomplished. Let's go for that. Maybe we've put you off by talking about dragons and fairy tales and all sorts, but I'm sure we'll win you over by football chat. And who better to go to football chat than Steve? Steve, during the week, we get a couple of days off. No, more than a couple of days. 6 days gap, isn't it? So it's Wednesday to the Tuesday. And we don't hear much from the camp. Until the day of the press conference. And even in the press conference, Steve, I really liked Jurgen Klopp's mood. I didn't think he was snapping away like he had been previously. I thought he was calm. And he spoke about having heart-to-heart with the players and the players themselves. Very much needed, right? What kind of things do you think would have been or could have been said in these heart-to-heart meetings?
I don't think they're overly intense. I think it's more of a reminder of who we are and what we stand for and what we've achieved, and remembering all of those things. And that, we were with an ace of doing the unthinkable in terms of a quadruple. You don't become a bad side overnight. There's some issues. There's some form issues. There's obviously been some injury issues. I just think it was a case of rallying the troops. I think it was done in a really positive way, because he's the most philosophical man on the planet, bar nobody. So I don't ever imagine him going into a team meeting loaded with negativity. That just doesn't seem to be his mantra. So for me, he would have been reminding them of what we do well, reminding them of what we set out to achieve at the start of the season, what the game plan is, what their roles are within that game plan. And more importantly, this is European football under the lights. We've not really treated our fans to any Bournemouth aside, which was a bizarre game, all told. We've not really treated our fans to the football they've become accustomed to this season, and it was a chance to sort of get back at it. So I think it was all done in a very positive way, and I think that was reflected in the way he was feeling. And I think Klopp, more than many other managers, is a guy that his mood transmits itself into the team. So if he's down and fed up about things, I think that travels down and transcends into the players and the style of play we play with. But when he's upbeat and he's positive and he's got a smile on his face, I think the mood in the camp is really positive. And that, for me, would have been the aim of the sort of keeping it low-key, not doing much in the media, dealing with it in-house, which is very much our style this year, I might add. But I think it was all done on a very, very positive note.
No, absolutely. We've got a channel member, Matt, who says, "Hey lads, first time catching live in the same hemisphere. over from Sydney for the Chelsea game. Shame. Oh, man. Good for you. But it did enjoy the Ajax game with the West Cork Supporters Club. Keep up the good work. You'll never walk alone. Amazing, man. That's just unfortunate, the amount of people that sort of traveled all around the world and sort of the games were cancelled and not a lot you can do about it, unfortunately. Keith, I guess after the horror show of Napoli, and it was a horror show, let's not make any bones about it. We all said it's probably the worst performance. I think we felt a bit better, not felt a bit better, but felt justified in terms of we're not going over the top with our criticism, because Jurgen Klopp came out and said it was the worst performance he can remember, and it was a shambles. When I saw the lineup, Keith, I felt, just like Conroy said, I felt a bit more calmer. And of course, Thiago Alcantara took all the plaudits and all the highlight. The everyone was sort of the focus. Focus was Thiago Alcantara. We'll be fine. For me, Joe Matip and Diogo Jota are not far behind in terms of importance to the spine of this Liverpool team. And I really felt at ease when I saw them in the lineup.
Yeah, it was so nice to actually see a lineup that resembles as close to a first 11 as Klopp would opt for. And, you know, he finally got his opportunity to do that. And for me, like, that's where I would always become nervous if it was a situation where Klopp's first 11 is constantly getting outwitted in games. And maybe, you know, if it was the first 11 that went to Napoli and lost 4-1, then it would be really, I would be concerned with everything. So the fact that we got the 11 we wanted and we turned up against Ajax and created so many chances and just played and pressed and connected in ways that we haven't seen much this season. And those three players were key to that. But you saw a glimpse of it amongst the doom and gloom was when Klopp made those changes and brought on Jota and brought on Joel Matip in the second half against that. It felt like the press was snappier because I think this 11 trust each other more in pressing actions than they do when the likes of James Milner's playing or players are playing out of position in the 11. So this team feels like it trusts each other more because they're more aggressive and they're more on the front foot and they're more willing to sacrifice space and be closer together. So when Thiago, for example, doesn't get enough credit for how so important he is in the pressing situations, Diogo the same. You know, they are so good at, you know, being the first person to go forward and encourage everybody to step up a step more. And in centre-back, Joel Matip is probably much more comfortable doing that, much more comfortable being on a man than Joe Gomez is. Joe Gomez almost tries to get the run on you, where Joel Matip's a lot more on the front foot. So those three, by having those three in there, not only did it help from a build-up perspective, but it actually helped us press and control space so much better in this game compared to the Napoli game.
I guess one of the key elements or one of the key reasons for that, what you're talking about in terms of trusting each other in the press as a team, as a unit, is familiarity. There was more players on the pitch that have played together. Jota's been part of the setup for longer. Thiago's been, you know, part of that midfield for longer. You know, only Elliott was still probably the unknown quantity. But when you've got experience alongside you on either side, so Fabinho and Thiago, and then you got Salah and Jota ahead of you, it makes you just feel a bit more comfortable within yourself as well.
Well,
Jamie, sorry.
One quick one on that. A person who felt much more comfortable in themselves in that game was Fabinho.
Yeah.
Having Thiago next to him.
Yeah,
sorry.
And we're gonna no, you're right, and we're gonna get onto that as well. First, I've completely forgotten. The moment's silence was impeccably performed by 99% of the fan base in the crowd. It was magnificent. It was brilliant. I was proud to be part of the fan base that acknowledges and respects when it needs to show respect. And it was impeccable. You're always going to get a handful of idiots that try to catch the attention of the world and whatever. But I thought some of the reporting afterwards in terms of it was stopped or it was halted early was embarrassing and quite shameful, really. Whoever said that, have a word with yourselves. But yeah, just wanted to say that was impeccable because I was present and I really, really felt proud at that moment. Jamie, who was you the most happy to see back in the lineup? Or was it more of a formation change? Not a change, but kind of just you knew we're going to be more rigid, more structured, or was there an individual? You can be like a excited child and look forward to an individual. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying, what was it? How did you feel?
Well, I mean, I think one of the most important things to think about is when we're talking about our formation and our style, the first line of defense isn't Allison. It's not the back four. It's not even the midfield. It's the front three because of the way that they pressure the ball and siphon them off into corridors where we have a higher advantage in the midfield of picking it off, or they can pick it off themselves. And so with Jota coming back, you have Jota in the middle, Saul on the right, Diaz on the left. And so now you've got guys who have been with us at a minimum up front since January, being Luis Diaz specifically. And so that just looked so much more confident, so much more relaxed, and so much more ready to carry out the load of what was needed for the game. And I think that when you go back to the second layer and then factor Thiago coming in, allows to take some of the workload off of Harvey Elliott, where it's not so much a situation where when you have Darwin on and when you have James Milner on, there are clearly disadvantages in terms of where we would have a higher percentage of having a more efficient team with younger, more ready and more world-class talents in those positions that will then take the workload off of Harvey Elliott. But the person who I am excited to see is Joel Matip. And why? Because it felt like for the first time in a long time, we looked really dangerous off of set pieces. And I mean, obviously you can see the goal and that's in and of itself. But when you have Virgil van Dijk 6'4", Joel Matip 6'5", these two, lumbering tall totem poles of humans coming through, it opens up the entire box because at least the tallest guy and the next tallest guy on the opposing defensive team have to go to those guys or have to be in a zone where then you get someone who can run towards the first post and they're open because they're occupied at the back with Virgil and Joel when they're coming in. Or you can have Virgil and Joel go to the front post and middle section area and someone comes to the back for a swooping header back in. And so for me, that opened up a level to our game, which I feel like hasn't been there since Khanage went out and since Matip hasn't been fit recently. And so not only does Joel Matip provide so many things on the defensive side, but offensively, not only with his passing, but in this case, I want to highlight on set pieces, he's so dynamic, and I'm just so happy to see him again.
Yeah, Conroy, we spoke about last season, didn't we, in terms of the improvement on our set pieces. Not only in delivery wise, but in terms of sort of organized attacking in our set piece formation. I think we've added Henderson and Fabinho when they play to commit themselves in the box as well, which always helps as well. Suddenly gives you at least 4 6-footers in the opposing half, which always helps. But saying all that, and I absolutely nailed it with my prediction. Obviously, didn't know that it's going to be the last minute, but I said the winner's going to come from a set piece. I was saying it to my friends who I was with. We're going to get a set piece winner. It's going to be set pieces. It's going to be set pieces. The delivery from Tsimikas was fantastic as well this game. Again, we know how important set pieces are, right? Especially in a game especially when in a moment where you're not at the best of forms, confidence isn't high, set piece can change the mood, can change the whole perspective, can't it?
No, absolutely. Very important to have that up your sleeve. I would add, though, I think going forward we'll see more of that because I thought we're right on it with delivery. You say Tsimikas, I think that's one thing he's actually has been very good. I know he got the Trent and Robbo. I think the habits from them after playing for a couple of months because they had a few games where his corners can beat the first man, and then Trent and Robbo seem to have that. But overall, his career, his set pieces, especially his corners, have always been on the money. He's got a wonderful left foot. What I would say though is, I think if you're going to beat a team with set pieces, Ajax are going to give you chances, because it's a great set piece, but their keeper was never coming to claim anything all game, and even when he did, he was punching stuff he should have caught. So like there was always a bit of nerves in that defence that you could punish. Be interesting to see going forward against certain teams where we have struggled to get anything. But as I say, he was spot on it. He was spot on with set pieces. And again, I think for us this season, I think you've alluded to it, Grizz, with your tweets. It's going to be a long season. I think you need the set pieces to bail you out in certain games, and as Jamie highlighted, it's very important. I think Joe Matip, for a guy who we all joke about, he's got a way about him, a bit, like no lackadaisical, but you know what I mean, he's a bit of a character that people say, oh, it doesn't look like a football and stuff like that. The amount of chances that guy gets per game from set pieces, because we're not even speaking about the two other headers that he probably should do better with as well. So having him in your team automatically helps with that. So yeah, absolutely. And I think going forward, we're going to gradually improve. I don't think it's just going to look like a switch, as I said earlier, and it will help to have that. And to be fair, I think Trent's delivery in that game was very good as well, and he's not been at it, so I think that's another positive as well.
Steve, Diogo Jota, as I said, for me, was one of the most missed players of the season so far. I was gutted. I remember me and you doing a show when the day we found out that he was injured or something. I remember it was a Daily Grizz show. It was in pre-season. And I was gutted. People get injured and people fall by the wayside. We had injuries to a lot of our players as the days ensued. But I knew Diogo Jota would be a man on a mission, something to prove. And I think a lot of people have forgotten his input and the effect that he'd had on this team. I was so happy to see him back, A, and B, straight away, just a different intensity of reading the press, cutting off the passing lanes. And when we're attacking, his movement is incessant, isn't it, Steve? And it kind of just leads to the first goal, I guess. After all the football and chances, it takes one punt, Diaz winning a header, and Diogo coming alive, reading the play, reading where the header's going to go, and then laying in Mohamed Salah. Couldn't have worked out better for him, apart from the goal himself.
Great return to the side. And I guess if you look at the other two chief protagonists up top for us, Núñez and Bobby, he's somewhere in the middle of those two in terms of the press is there that Bobby's got, which we don't see from Núñez as such, because he likes to isolate central defenders and go one-on-one with them. It was really, really good to see him back. His direct running, like you say, his movement, very clever movement for a guy that started out left and was playing through the centre. He's learnt very quickly how to play the central role. There's still parts of his game to improve on. That would be the case forever in terms of playing with back to goal and all of that stuff. But nice to have a centre forward in there that linked up with Diaz, linked up with Salah. And it was kind of like there was a familiarity back in the front three, which we've struggled with, to be fair. When we've had Bobby back in, we haven't necessarily had a midfield to support that. With Thiago coming back into the side, playing alongside Fabinho, Keith was exactly right to reference that was a different Fabinho with that guy alongside him. With the familiarity in the front three, it felt much more fluid. It felt much more like we could create chances. And as you say, Diaz wins the header that he's got no right to win, but he's like a street fighter, isn't he? So the ball goes off to Jota, and he's very clever how he slows down play to adjust to play Salah in, and then everyone thinks the ball's going in the bottom left-hand corner, and it goes in on the right-hand side. It's like running back the years and watching some of the goals we've scored before, and it's really, really good to see it because that's been missing. We've been without fluidity in the front three for most of the season. Again, I'll take the Bournemouth game in isolation because I still can't figure that one out. That's just a mental game, and it's the barometer of absolutely nothing in terms of the season because it was bizarre. But in terms of those three, they looked for each other all the time. They were aware where their runs were. In a front three that's as fluid as that and moves as well as that, familiarity is absolutely everything. At times, and it's not a criticism, any stretch of the mark, at times Darwin Núñez looks lost in the Liverpool front three because he doesn't understand or get the movements. He will, but at this moment naturally, at this moment in time, he's not a patch on what those guys are doing, and it was really, really good to watch. It's like a European game of old with the way we countered and scored the goal with the movements, and then ultimately Salah finishing the job. So, yeah, I completely agree. Really good to have Diogo back. Really good to see the movement. Really good to see that intensity and the clever football. And it was a typical Liverpool front three for the first goal.
It was because Ilias suggests or asks the question, what has happened to our atmosphere? Pretty much like our team, my friend, still catching its, still waiting to catch fire, so to speak. The atmosphere was much better because of the performance. It's a two-way thing. You give them something to shout about, the Anfield crowd will bloody shout. I tell you that for a fact. But the Anfield crowd is a very knowledgeable crowd, and they can see when there's issues, and it's very difficult to raise yourself when things aren't going too well. But we did. I thought the crowd played its part, and for sure the players played their part. Keith, I've given you the last part of the trilogy that came back, or the threesome that came back. Thiago Alcantara. The others are probably saying, "Wow, Grizz has done us. He's given you the best player and the showpiece." But I'll let them speak on it because I want to expand a little bit on Thiago Alcantara, because many will say, Keith, that he is the best player or one of the only world-class players we've bought in recent times, in possibly a very long time. Hit me in the chat if we can think of a player that we brought that was world-class before Thiago Alcantara, and I'm talking world-class. Keith, we went out of our way to make sure we signed this guy. It also helped that he only wanted Liverpool and to play for Jurgen Klopp. We snapped him up for an absolutely paltry fee of about 20 million, paid in about 5 installments, as you do. A lasting present from Michael Edwards. This guy is fantastic. He's been everything that we expected, except in terms of the amount of appearances he's played for us. Keith, this is coming up to 2 years, or it's just over 2 years now since this magician came to our club. Has he made the impact that you thought he's going to make? Has he lived up to the hype and expectations you thought he's going to bring? Because for me, he was I still sometimes pinch myself when I see him play live that he's actually playing for us.
It's just funny how life is, because in another universe, you're saying that Thiago Alcantara helped Liverpool achieve everything. And he was key last season to some of our best performances. He was key last season to our evolution that everybody spoken about. And I think he brings a style of football that we just don't have. None of the players can do what he does. There's one that surprised me and one that we knew was coming. I thought the one that we knew was coming was having always kind of hated on City for being able to get David Silva at the time. I think we were in for him as well, or in and around at the time.
Yeah, Rafa definitely wanted him.
And the way he used to play passes, like passes where people just don't see it, cutting passing lanes left, right, and center, having the audacity to just, ping the vision, if you will, to ping a pass out of nowhere and to start something where the ball's just chilling in your box. All of a sudden, one pass later, Mane, Salah, and Bobby were on their bike, or Jota were on their bike, and no player at Liverpool passes in that way, in that fashion. So that I knew was coming. What's been so pleasantly surprising is how effective he is as a ball-winning midfielder. He's tenacious. He's physical. He wins headers. For such a small man, he wins headers like all the time. Like he's up for it. Like he came to the Premier League, and people would have the theory, he's a maestro coming to the Premier League, and he came to the Premier League, dusted off those boots, and put in a tackle many, many times. You know what I mean? Got involved, got a part of the hustle and bustle. And the way he presses, he's now become one of our main triggers, right? When he is making a press, the team will step up. And that's how important he is to the Liverpool team. And it's such a shame that he has the niggles and stuff like that. But despite all of that, you have to argue that Thiago Alcantara, when people talk about evolution of Liverpool, him as a signing was exactly that. And is why we got the season we got last season. Get him for that. Fabinho and Thiago for a 10 to 15 game run. We're talking about a different season. that for that, I'm sure what we saw from them last season and what they were able to achieve, like, it's just a matter of having the players there and available. Once they're available, like, that's why it's been a stumbling block. It almost encapsulates. It's almost like brings into discussion the whole season. Thiago being that injury, right? He gets injured first game of the season. We haven't had him back since, and that's been the story of our season as a whole. Now that story has now come to an end, and we've had a few breaks in between. Thiago, over the next 10 games, they're going to be eulogizing over him all over again in the Sky Sports studio. That's my hot take for sure.
Jamie,
Grizz, could I just jump just for, sorry to interrupt Jamie, because I just Keith's point's really good. I've got to be honest, guys, I agree with everything Keith said. But see, the more I watch Thiago, the more I see him lauded deservedly so. Actually, the more frustrating it is for me, because we may be competing on all fronts and we're literally relying on the fitness and well-being of a 32-year-old. Like, that's our plan. Does that not frustrate you? Do you not find that very frustrating that that's our go-to? I don't think that's good enough. Like, I think he's unbelievable, but we can't be holding all our hopes that Thiago has to be fit. For me, I get annoyed when I keep hearing this all the time, like, because it's true, but I find it very, very frustrating. And I just wanted to ask, do you guys feel that as well? Because I think we always look at it as like a positive because he's brilliant, but I'm looking at, well, why we've got all this planning and that's the one thing we're relying on. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, because it starts to wind me up, to be honest.
Go for it. It's a free-for-all. It's a very valid point. What I will say very quickly, and then, because Keith can maybe answer that, because he's the one who's relying on Thiago to pull him through the fire.
No, it's not. It's a big thing.
But it's
online.
true.
It's not just
but it's
Keith,
true.
yeah.
No, it's not. No, I'm joking. Keith knows. But it's true though. We are relying. We're almost admitting that we're reliant on an injury-prone genius. So why are we relying on an injury-prone genius when we know he's an injury-prone genius? This is the question. Now, go on, you go first.
About that, right? Do you know what other football club are suffering from a similar situation right now? Chelsea. No one talks about the fact that N'Golo Kante is world-class, difference maker, changes that team completely. And he too is injury prone, and they too are relying on a genius in midfield. And the argument is, how many of those genius in midfielders are there to have that level of quality? And that's probably why we rely on it as a result, because it's something that you just can't find anywhere else. I think this
was my counter as one of the reasons. Yeah, this was my counter as one of the reasons, because there's not many of these type around, just that you can just pick off a tree and say, yeah, we should have a Thiago replacement, a younger version of Thiago, because there's not many Thiagos in the world, just like there's not many Kantes or many KVDBs. I'm sure KDB missing from Man City would have a very similar effect on their team. I get it. But then what do we do, Steve or Jamie, then? If that's the case and there's only few Thiagos in this world, how do we overcome this? How do we not be so reliant? Because we can't afford not to be in the pecking order when it comes to giving out titles. And if we're saying it's reliant on Thiago being fit, then Conroy and all the people that have this doubt in their head, we shouldn't be in this position, are right.
I feel like it's kind of a little bit of a circle debate, and I totally understand where Conroy is coming from. But Thiago's on 180 grand a week, right? 4-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Give or take, yeah.
Let's say his transfer fee was 20 million and he's on 9,300,000. He cost 60 million for 4 years, right? How much did Núñez go to Wolves for?
About 40, wasn't it? 40 million?
Yeah, and then you factor in, okay. So right off the bat, you can see there was kind of an anomaly in the market for the price and the contract that we could get Thiago for. But then when we talk about our real problems, right, it's not just that Thiago is injured. And I say it's a circle debate because Oxlade-Chamberlain is also injured. Henderson is also injured. Naby Keita is also injured. And we're playing a kid, a 59-year-old, and another kid potentially. Fabio Carvalho saw some action. Then you've got Artur in there. So for me, it's one of those things where I don't think it's right to be mad at Thiago, because when he's been on the field for us, he's been absolutely amazing and injury prone. I just want to touch on this, right? His first game versus Everton, he's got that shot tackle in where he's nearly broken his leg. So right from the jump, from the get-go, he's been in the trenches for Liverpool. And he finished that game out, by the way. Didn't get subbed out. And so this is a hard man. And when we talk about writing and we talk about football scripture, this guy, born in Italy, World Cup winning father, Mazinho from Brazil, played at the Flamengo Academy, played at Barcelona's first team for his introduction to professional football. Just to get in on the end of Thiago, because I think it's just one of those things where we actually have to be, in my opinion, so grateful for the fact that he was able to come to us, because it takes a certain type of person to see what Liverpool is right now, where it has been and where it is going, sort of similar to Jurgen Klopp, where I remember thinking when Klopp came, this is a guy who's coming here because he's seen the heritage and he's seen the pedigree, and he wants to create something new that he can be a part of and stamp his name on it. And I kind of feel like Thiago felt like that as well, where he knew in a league with Pep Guardiola and Man City, what you're going to do at Liverpool, if you're able to achieve something, is going to be so much more special. So right off the bat, I really appreciate Thiago for believing in Liverpool, but also having the class to say, I'm ready for anything. I want a different challenge, because most players at that age are not going to do that. They're not coming to the Premier League where they're getting battered week in, week out at one of the highest intensity levels in the world. But to finish off on Conroy's point, I share the sentiment about being upset, but I think that this is much more a Jurgen Klopp, FSG, contract renewal situation for the last 2-3 years, as opposed to why don't we have anyone like Thiago? Because I simply just don't think that you're going to find someone in an affordable range that Liverpool is going to go out.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jamie. And to be honest, to add to the point as well, I wasn't just both points there. I'm not just meaning that, you could have a Thiago-esque replacement comes in, but also I think as well, when he's not there, you've got something, a style of play or something that's, I know we have in the past, but it's effective. So it's a case of, we can still get through games. It's not as if everyone's like, I can't wait, that kind of saviour complex, he's going to come back. Because when he does come back, he is amazing, but I don't think it's a great position to be in, because it's just like every time we go into a game, someone says, this will change when this player comes back. That gets frustrating, if you ask me, all the time.
No, I agree with you. But I do want to stress and remind a lot of people in the chat that are saying, Thiago is the superhero and the savior, and we need to. Let's just remind ourselves, we've just won the Premier League and Champions League without Thiago Alcantara in recent years. Bear that. Just remember that. So as amazing as Thiago is, Thiago was bought as part of the evolution of trying to go to another level, or a different level. Not necessarily a higher level, because winning the Premier League and the Champions League is the highest level, right, guys? It was just so as to not be as predictable as some were claiming that we were becoming. And it's fair to say, Steve, it's just because of the injury situation that we're not actually being able to see the fruits of that. And this is the frustration for me. Everyone has their own, but for me, this is the frustrating part, that we haven't seen the master plan evolve as it should have or could have, because of the niggling injuries, not only to Thiago, but to the others around him.
Well, I'll answer that straight away. I wonder how many times Jurgen Klopp has been able to pick the exact side he wanted to pick throughout his tenure as manager. Not too often, I would imagine. So when we signed Thiago, we wouldn't have envisaged that Gini Wijnaldum would walk away from the football club on a free transfer. So we signed Thiago to do, for me, something different to what he's doing now, in terms of he was a 25-game-a-season player at Barcelona and Bayern Munich, because he had his injury problems there too. So we bought him knowing this was the case. We never bought a player that played 60 games a season. That just wasn't what he did. My view was, and I spoke to other people about this, other fans, people, respected opinions, he was bought to bring on with half an hour to go, to see out games and win games. He would play his fair share of games as well, but he would help us manage games and win games for us in tight situations where you can control a football two ways. You can control a football by limiting space for the opposition to play in. We did that really well with Gini Wijnaldum. Or you can control a game of football with somebody on the ball who's like a quarterback, someone, for the want of a better phrase, someone who can use the ball and keep you the ball, and that's Thiago. So in short, Conroy's question is, it is frustrating. Would love to have another player of his ability. It would be really, really cool to do that. When you're as good as Thiago is, every team in the world would be hanging on his availability because he's that good. I know a guy's been going to watch Liverpool for 50 years, and him and his best mate walk away from there going, how the hell did he do that? How the hell did he do this? How's he done that? Because I've never seen that before. These are guys who've been going to Anfield for 50 years. They've seen Souness, they've seen McDermott, they've seen Gerrard, they've seen them all. But this guy still makes them walk away shaking their head. So he's unique. We talk about Evans got a really good point. He says about Bobby Firmino being a one-off and you could never replace him because there's not another one out there. Well, it's the same for Thiago. And the situation is whenever he's available, there's going to be a clamour to get him in the side. Unfortunately, at times he's made of glass and we can't rely on him for 50 games a season. So there's a frustration, Conroy, but I'm not sure there's a solution out there to bring a player in of that ability to bridge the gap when he's not there.
No, I get that, Steve, but I was thinking more in the sense of see the gap you talk about. As of late, it feels like that gap's massive, and I don't think that should be the case. So what I mean is, right, I understand Thiago's a one-off. I'm not disputing that at all. I just think it seems to be that it's very frustrating that it's like Thiago or bust, the attitude is sometimes, and that is frustrating because we're not a team who's just like, it's maybe competing on all fronts. I find the more glorified he deservedly gets, by the way, because he's that, even that dummy he done against Ajax, we just let it go through his legs, like genius. Honestly, like I'm right up there for. I think he is that. I believe everything about him. He's unique. I just think that gap shouldn't be that much, where it's like every game it's like, well, it's like we can't just get a win. We can't just find a way of winning. We can't, play a different style or try something different. Or we are trying to, but it's just not working. And that's what leaves me frustrated.
We're going to do a piece. We've already discussed what we're going to do tonight. We know the agenda. We're going to do a piece on players' position in this season and last season and all that stuff, and who's playing in what position and why that is. And hopefully I'll get an opportunity to explain why I think you see what you see, because the way that we're lining up at the moment is when he's not there, it's causing us problems. And when he is there, he's solving those problems. And we'll get to that when we do the positions thing.
We can probably segue into that now. Why leave the followers and subscribers and the watchers in suspense, Steve? Brilliantly segued into. I guess I'll stay with you, and because I think to a man, all of us, the shambles that we saw in Napoli, we were so concerned. And even Jurgen Klopp alluded to the position and sort of the shape of the team. It made no sense. And then it raised the question not only of one player, but a few players in terms of Elliot's role, Trent's role, Mohamed Salah's role, James Milner. So therefore, we wanted to see something different, or we were thinking, are we going to see something different in the Ajax game? Now, Conrad, I don't know which one you got first. I guess Napoli is the first one to probably bring up, right? If you could bring up the Napoli average, the average positions in the Napoli game that ended up. Now, what stands out straight away to all of us guys, right, is the state of Trent, Elliot, and Mohamed Salah. Literally on each other's toes, like in terms of the average positions throughout that game. I mean, that was just disastrous, wasn't it, from the offset, Steve?
That's Joe Gomez versus the world. That's what that is.
Yeah.
You look at that there. It's really interesting. Harvey Elliott is the conundrum at the moment. He's the guy that's getting the column inches and the media and fans alike are speaking about his starting position. He doesn't start in the same position that Jordan Henderson starts. He starts 15 yards further up the pitch for me. So your transition is there. If you can get in behind Elliott, you can get on the ball with 2 or 3 men. This was evidenced against Napoli. With 2 or 3 men out on the left-hand side, you can play through Trent, you can play through Gomez, and you get really, really good opportunities to get at Liverpool. what's interesting there is Trent's position is not inverted particularly, and in the last sort of 6 months or so, Trent's been getting a lot of success playing in a much more inverted role. He's been appearing in an 8 or sometimes a 10 position. And I think Harvey Elliott's stopping him doing that because there's 3 bodies what appear to be within touching distance of each other there. And if you, which we have, freeze frame that at any point in the game, if you lose the ball on the left-hand side, for instance, and you go and you think about that, the switch is on. Real Madrid switched us every single time they got the ball in the quarterfinal of the Champions League the year before last because there was the same issue there. It was Nat Phillips versus the world on that night. So it's basically you can switch into those areas. If you overload into those areas, Shavra Maradona, whatever they called him, was a guy that went and decided to play over there. He caused havoc against us by taking up a position on the left-hand side in the Napoli game because they got 2 or 3 bodies around there and they just played around us. They played through us with give and goes. So that is a major issue, and it is all about starting positions and where you end up when you lose the ball, because we've got 3 guys on the right-hand side who are trying to create triangles, to create opportunities, to get number 9 and number 23 on the ball and get shots off and create chances. When that doesn't work and they lose the ball, and let's be honest, and I'm sure he'd say it himself, some of Trent's passing of late has been particularly lazy, and it's been giving the ball away very, very easily. Well, you don't want your right back giving the ball away 10, 15 yards inside the opposition's half, because if they can get in behind you, you're in all kinds of trouble. I had a lot of sympathy for Joe Gomez in that game. He was taken off at half-time, and rightly so, but he was left to hang out to dry. He was left two on one very often. He didn't help himself, but that is a snapshot of kind of Alamo situation where you got one man staring at 3 of your opposition coming at you. And it's to do with 2 things. It's to do with Elliott's starting position, and it's to do with the language style of football that Trent's been playing with in the last month.
And Keith, if Conroy kindly switches that, right? So we've got this in our head, in our minds, right? Look at the stark difference and contrast in terms of how we set up sort of in against Ajax. And of course we can see that Mohamed Salah is further forward. Of course, we can see Elliott is far more inverted. And Trent is playing as an orthodox fullback, as opposed very similar to how Robertson is. Robertson's position hasn't changed from, Tsimikas in this case. His position hasn't changed from Robertson's sort of against the Napoli. Orthodox fullbacks. I think we went a bit more back to basics. Me and Conroy are speaking about off air. I think we went back to basics in terms of Trent. You're now playing as you've played for the previous few seasons. Elliott, you're doing more of a Henderson type role this game. And Mohamed Salah, you're playing like Mohamed Salah. But for me, interestingly, as key was the role of Thiago, pretty much parallel with Fabinho, given that balance, and you've spoken about before, almost a double pivot. It just gave a far more Liverpool look to it, right?
It's shape, right? You're always in better shape when you're available and you're fit and you're in cohesion. And this would be something that we would have been accustomed to last season. Let's be honest with you, many times last season, right? What I love about this is almost Joel Matip's position, and his, for me, one of the, we eulogized about him on here, and best playmaker that we have in the team in terms of ball distribution, in terms of from that particular position. He can make something out of nothing, and the fact that he joins up with Elliott and with Fabinho, it allows it. How would I describe it? It allows the ball to be what's it called? It allows him to come and find, like, the passes that he was playing to Diogo Jota to let him go free. It took the pressure off Fabinho to be the playmaker, whereas in the previous game against Napoli, Joe Gomez often given it to him in those situations. He had nothing to do with it, and he didn't know what to do with it. So it took the pressure off him a little bit, and that symmetry between him and Thiago is just something beautiful. I must say, it's something that, like we all said, there should be different options in the midfield. I don't disagree with that at all. But this, for me, these two, it's almost a case of what could be at this point. if they don't keep their fitness up, because in this Ajax game it was so crucial for us to do what we did. So yeah, man, this
Jamie,
was so much better.
Jamie, so much better and so much more mature. And the one thing that stands out to me is number 6, number 3, number 32, Thiago, Fabinho, Joe Matip. Screams game intelligence to me. Positional awareness, positional sense, game maturity. It's a whole different spine when you have got those three pretty much across the center of your park. Automatically, they know where to be, when to be, and the position of that team. Maybe it was by instruction of these guys for Trent. Maybe we're doing a disservice to the players on the pitch to say, Trent, you stay there. You don't need to come inside so much and try to be. I'm pretty sure it was the coaches, but it wouldn't put, you get what I mean? These guys are coaches on the pitch, right? Thiago, Fabinho, Matip.
No, 100%. And kind of with this graphic, you can see a little bit of Virgil make sort of an obtuse triangle with Tsimikas and Thiago, where that's sort of his vector point where he's going to go off of. Joel Matip the same. And so you have two regiments where you can funnel different things. And from the previous picture, right, it's like Harvey, Trent, and Salah are all marking each other, obviously leaving Joe on an island, as we talked about. But when you can get the flexibility of having that 3 in a legitimate triangle, right, you can have the center midfielder make those inverted or out runs, which is something that I feel Henderson did extremely well in the system before, specifically with coming into the inverted position and going out and making the overlapping run, which is something that we haven't seen enough this season, which has been our bread and butter. And so not only is that leadership and experience there, but it's also repetition. This is something that these guys have done before. The other thing, too, to factor in is confidence. And I've started to think about this, and I really think it's worth noting. I think Virgil van Dijk plays his best football for Liverpool alongside Joel Matip. I don't know if that's a hot take or something, but he looks so much more confident in himself with Joel Matip there. And so imagine what everybody else feels like. But because Joel is he's such an enigma. He's such an awkward guy. You have the clip of the talking about coconuts, and it's the fun fact, and he's like Coco Genus or whatever he was saying. And he's just so funny, and he's an amazing guy, clearly. And he's also a guy who can get the ball in the halfway line. And when that center midfielder and right back have the confidence to drop off into the space, he can then take the ball forward and go on runs like we saw against Leeds and score goals. And so he's so dynamic. He's so underrated. And he's someone who I just feel fits the Liverpool profile brilliantly. Humble, but a character of themselves.
Conroy, was there anything that you wanted to point out or noticed about sort of the average positions and just general setup of the performance this week as opposed to the week before?
Well, Grizz, I just unshared it there because the way I had it set up, I couldn't unmute myself without changing the screen. But I think everyone summed up perfectly. Nothing to add from my point of view. I think the points were excellent, and I think actually being able to use WhoScored.com to point that out as well, I think it's very useful to see. Obviously, we're analysing every game, and we mentioned that a few people this week could say like the heat maps with Elliott and stuff, where's his position, and like Trent, Salah, all in the same area. So I would just think it would be good for us to monitor that going forward as well.
Yeah.
So say maybe after 5 games, we'll have a good sample size to see if this is opposition dependent or it's the way going forward. So we can I'll take a note of that and do that for next week as well, after the international break as well.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we won't go into the actual details of the game and the incidents, apart from they equalised with an amazing equaliser. Again, questions sort of as to what happened and was there someone to blame. It was the one time they got in behind. Go on.
Kudos to Kudus. Just wanted to say that. Kudos.
I know you did. You only wanted to come on and say that.
It was beautiful. Come on, the way he took that. It was a typical European night away goal at Anfield. Do you know what I mean? Something out of nothing, roar of the crowd. It was a moment for sure.
Considering they're a very good team, very underrated, 7 wins in a row. I think first defeat in about 20 European away games or something along those lines. Considering that was their only chance, apart from a Dali Blind header in the second half, which gave us a bit of a heart issue at the time. We really controlled them. It was more like the Liverpool that we speak about, Steve, in terms of trapping the other team in and not letting them out. And of course, that is all about pressure on the ball and your position and your starting point off it. And if you combine that two, you get pretty much a Liverpool performance of old. But it wasn't perfect, but it was vital, absolutely vital that we got 3 points. And so therefore it sets us up. Or we go into the international break with a far more, what's the word? In a comforting position, I guess, than it would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. It's better to go into breaks when you come back from it. You've got something to build on rather than you're scratching your head thinking, where did that go wrong again? I think going back to the graphic we looked at a minute ago, just to sort of finish up on that, and it will explain why we got to where we got to. We introduced Jota and we introduced Thiago back into the fold. And guess what? They can press. So they pressed properly, which meant Fabinho could press as well, instead of trying to cover people who can't press. People who don't know how to press, trying to do 2 or 3 things at once and actually doing none of those things and making himself look like he wasn't playing particularly well himself. So the addition of players who can press means, how many times did third man running get in behind us? Not many, because we stopped that. The big difference between Napoli and Ajax was they didn't have runners at will getting in behind us and creating havoc. It didn't happen. Or if it did, it happened a lot less. So you're quite right. Really, really important to get through that game. First European night under the lights. One thing you don't want to do is go out of two games in Europe, come out of both of those games with nothing, because then the next 4 games, the pressure and the intensity of those games goes through the roof. The comment before, what's happened to the atmosphere? The atmosphere is a Liverpool fan base at the moment that was there with some trepidation as to where the team's going and what actually would they do, because the performance was so bad in Napoli. There's a lot of apprehension ahead of the Ajax game. You're quite right. 7 league wins in a row, unbeaten in God knows how many games in Europe, came with a real swagger, tails up, looking at Liverpool against Napoli, thinking, we'll get something here. And they went alone in thinking that. Our fan base was worried about that game because Ajax are no pushovers. There is improvements to come. You're quite right. There are things we can do better. There's still a bit more improvement to come from the side, or rather quite a lot more improvement to come from the side. But there was the Liverpool identity in the game for you to see. And we haven't seen that enough this season. You actually could see the Liverpool game plan being executed, setting traps, pressing in the right areas, winning the ball back high, getting at people. And it comes as a result of we introduce bodies back into the team who understand where to press and when to press. And the second part of that, when to press, is absolutely critical to us winning the ball back. So, yeah, much better performance, more to come from the side. Really good to go away for the 17 days, I think it was, after that game, where we go and lick our wounds, the one that we've got, and we work on the good things and we put some more feel-good factor into the squad. But that's a good win against a difficult opposition. So let's not forget that was a tough game for us. And as Keith quite rightly says, great goal by Ajax. It's a typical European goal. Nothing you can do about it. The finish is absolutely ridiculous. 3 or 4 weeks ago, we may not have got to what we got to by the end of the game. I know it's a very late goal, but that's resilience and that's character, and that's back in the side now.
It is. Conroy, we people probably wondering what the title meant, the calm before the storm. Well, it's quite a storm waiting for us in terms of games after the international break. I think it's something like 13 games in the matter of 6 weeks, guys. That's the storm I'm referring to. Some people were sort of wondering what the storm's about or what the calm's about. Well, now you know. The 17 days, the calm, and then before we get into an absolute storm of games. It's not quite the league position that we expected, but it's not the worst. And I say that some of the performances have been the worst, but we find ourselves 8 points behind Man City, who we still look at as realistically the ones that we're targeting, with a game in hand. Obviously, you have to win that game in hand. 5 points behind. We have a 17-day break. What's your aim for these 17 days if you're Jurgen Klopp? What's your hopes? What's your thinking? You can't even train them that much because so many go away for World Cup, for international duty. But overall, what's your hopes and aspirations in this couple of weeks that we have off now before we get back?
I would kind of still say what we said, just after the Napoli game. We all agreed, and what it looks like it's came to fruition. Just going back to the basics, and when I say back to basics, I do mean that in a very football intelligent version of those coaches' basics. But you know what I'm saying? As you've seen with Trent and Elliott there, Salah, going back to what made them successful and just trying that for a bit. I think we go forward with that. We get some wins under our belt, Grizz. Because the big thing, people just assume, so we've done 15-match winning runs. That's great, but we've been playing pretty poor, and every team in this league can hurt you. Well, most of the teams, maybe 18 teams, any team can hurt you, but the standard of each team in the Premier League over the years is improving now. I'd say every team, or close to every team, bar maybe the bottom three, has got a very, very good player or someone who can hurt you. And I think when we've done that in the past, yeah, you could bank on us doing that. But right now, we're going into games not knowing if we're going to turn up. So back to the basics, what we said, we worked on, and the Ajax game looked like that. Continue with that. I'd say stick with that version if you're playing Elliott. Do it that way with Trent and Salah, and not, as I say, stepping on each other's toes, because that is, as Steve mentioned, in transitioned, whoever's playing there, if it's Matip or Joe Gomez, is them against the world. And the players other teams have got now, just to look back to that, they can hurt you in one chance. They really can. So I would just reinforce that. And touch wood, another thing is there's not any injuries following international break. That would be another point I would really hope for, because right now, if it can happen, it will happen. So I'm really, really hoping we get through that without any serious injuries. And maybe, all jokes aside, I know people have been having their own opinions on Artur. He's only came on for a little spell and he played that game at the weekend. But hopefully that can give him a chance as well, Grizz, to try and get his fitness levels up to be ready to play more parts and matches.
Well, we know that he nominated himself to play in the under-21 game yesterday alongside Fabio Carvalho.
Love that. I've got a lot of time for that, saying that.
No, absolutely. That's nice of him.
Well, just to say, that's the attitude, isn't it? I need to get.
It's the right attitude. Yeah. Absolutely, it is the right attitude. And look, maybe I'm being a bit cynical here, guys. Tell me if I am. You guys, tell me. Feel free to tell me, but I am. I was slightly aghast at some of the reports telling me how unfit he was in the first place. Like, you are a professional footballer. I understand you're out of favour at your club. I get it. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit over cynical, guys. Tell me again, please buy in. But I thought to myself, like, according to what I was told, they were shocked at his levels of fitness. So obviously there's been reports that we've decided we're going to sell him. That's all bollocks. Of course, that's all bollocks. But it's emanated, or it's arised from the state of his fitness and sort of how behind he actually is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he was injured, guys. Maybe I'm not fully informed in terms of what the situation was, but he's got a lot of catching up to do. And fair play to him. He's trying his best to do so. Keith, what's good says, is it me? I don't think we perform well after breaks. We are our best with games coming quick. Better in Ajax game, but could have went either way. Are you of the opinion you wanted to just get out there and carry on playing, or are you good with this little break now?
No, this is probably the one time where we've actually needed the break. Historically, yes.
100%. That's how I feel. 100%. This time, I'll take the break.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it used to be a bit of a voodoo curse when we were talking about breaks coming up, especially when we were like on a roll of like 5 wins in a row. So, but this time it's needed, and the best way to use it is to make sure the training sessions are just as hard and just as competitive
But then so many of our players are getting injured in training, Keith. It's a catch-22 situation. What is going on?
This is just a curse, isn't it? This is just...
When will it end, Robbie? When will it end?
Oh man, it's got to get a shaman in there, man, and get rid of the bad juju. But it's one of those things. But it's great that our players coming back, getting the team squad's getting a bit more competitive. And I think Klopp will use this as a mini pre-season. That's definitely how he'll do it again. And I think coming off the back of it, there's players that can go and rediscover their form playing around other players, and none more so than I'm very interested to see Darwin Núñez's performance for Uruguay over the next couple of weeks. I think there's an opportunity to, especially between now and then obviously the World Cup as well, is to use your performances for your country and getting the opportunity to build some form out there and bring it back home. So hopefully some of our players will use it to get sharper and to get better. And so for once, I'm happy about the international break. And actually there will be a few games you'll be keeping an eye on just to see how things are going. But sometimes, getting out, doing something different always helps to refresh the mind. So hopefully we'll use it well.
Absolutely. Mr. Sinclair says, Grizz with a long break. Any more first teamers back? Hoping so we can reset and go again. No offense to the superstars, rest of the superstars, but where's the prodigy Avi? Avi's a prodigy. You said it yourself. Very busy man. But so I guess you gotta harass him and chase him up. But plenty of superstars on show. First teamers back. Jamie. So what do we know? We know that Konate will be back after the break. We know Henderson will be back after the break. We know Konate, Henderson, Robertson will be back after the break. Who else is missing? That's it, right? Calvin Ramsey will be back in training. Curtis Jones is hoping to be back in training. Naby Keita is hoping to be back in training. That would leave Oxlade-Chamberlain, I believe, is the only one not back in training. That sounds better, doesn't it? It just gives us more hope. The more options, the more manpower, the more bodies. It gives a chance to rotate, rest, because we're just not going to be able to play the same players every 2-3 days right now. Because as I mentioned, 13 games in 6 weeks. We're going to need every single squad member, right?
Yeah, 13 games, 36 days. That's 1 every 3, right? If I've done my math, I hope so. I'm a 6th grade math teacher, but yeah, no. And look, let's just take a pause, right? Let's look at Liverpool without those 5, 6, 7 guys that you talked about, and let's look at them afterwards when they're all there, because I know it's not something that you can see, but the level in training when you have more high quality world-class players there, the level of a bench that you can provide and the confidence that adds, it just takes you up so many levels. And you can then go into different things in game where if it's that a lad is really running low on his gas tank and you have a like-for-like replacement, you can maintain what you want in the game. Or you can have the diversity to say, well, we need a goal here, but I want to keep at least one striker on. We can go to Bobby behind and Darwin in front, or Bobby behind and Jota in front. There's a plethora of different things that you can do. And I talked about this on the last show, but there are several players this season who I think really would have done well, who maybe haven't had this at Liverpool. Maybe they have not had this. They have a suitable replacement behind them who gets an opportunity, does well, and it gives a kick up their butt to say, okay, I need to go back and defend my spot. Otherwise, this other guy is coming through here, and he knows that I've been the guy here for a little while, so he knows he has no room to screw up here. Otherwise, I'm going right back in. And these are the things where it's like, I've said this before on this show. I've said this before on the call-in show. But when you don't have the resources of a fully fit squad, everything is so much more difficult. And the one thing I think about is, thank God the season is the way that it is, because 5 points is not insurmountable at any stage beyond March, potentially beyond March. Let's call it 6 points beyond March 15th with City. That might be you're done. But anything before that, 5-6 points, I think you're really in the running. And so that being said, there's this chunk of time where, in my opinion, as long as we don't let the deficit get bigger and we maintain right on there, less than 6 points, even potentially less than 10 points, you cannot rule this Liverpool team out in many circumstances. And the other thing I want to go back to before I cede my time is Liverpool Ajax, for the first time this season, I felt like was a must-win game. And must-win Liverpool is a different beast. I can't remember more than maybe 4 or 5 times in the last 3 or 4 years that must-win Liverpool has had a game and they haven't won. Comes to my mind is
Spurs last year, probably. Spurs last year. That was the one.
That's one, and also the Champions League final, and then what was the game previous to that? I'm trying to
City away. Yeah. Or was that a must not lose? Maybe I think
it was a must win, but they showed how they could have been 4 up within 20 minutes in that game. I think that showed that was at the start of it's a must win, but then when you watched it, like they could be 3-0 up. So let's dial it back a bit. I'll take a draw.
In any case, to finish off my point, when Liverpool plays a game that they need to win and they know they need to win, it's a different beast. And so, on to Keith's point, as long as Liverpool can play with their best players in must-win games and get the job done a majority of the time, I'm not going to be too worried, and I understand when they don't meet up to standards if those two things aren't the case.
Guys, just very quickly before we go into the last segment, which is Ask Away. Anything you want to ask, aim it at someone in particular, aim it at the whole panel, go for it. Conroy, if you could just star any questions. Before I give the plug to our sponsors, of course, guys, ones that weren't here at the start, go check out yourfutcard.com. Use the code RedFellas. You get 15% off all your merchandise, your custom-made cards, your custom-made banners, your custom-made prints, anything like, for example, the Joel Matip header. Request it. He'll get it made for you. Brilliant guys working there. Anything that sticks out in your memory and you want a print made, go and chat to these people. They can get it made. The quality is immense and it's brilliant. I mean, look at that beaut right behind you guys. The game's the game. Go and check them out. yourfutcard.com. Okay, we've got a couple of questions already in here. Here we go. I'm going to go with this question. Who am I going to go to? I'm going to go to Steve with this question.
How much credit do FSG have in the bank?
Have you seen their accounts? Do you know how much they got in the bank? By the way, I wonder if you have.
Have a look at where we were when they took control of the club. There are things they could have done differently, and there are things they could have done better. I think everybody would say that. There's this idea that everything that we do is driven by FSG. Well, it isn't necessarily, because Liverpool has its own set of accounts and its own set of books, and Mike Gordon is the go-between between FSG and Liverpool. So when we shout at the Twitter, don't buy a yacht, buy a player, that's so wide of the mark, it's unbelievable. The budgeting isn't done by John Henry. So in terms of FSG, look at the ground, look at the training ground, look at the trophies in the cabinet, look at the players, the calibre of the players we've got. Most importantly, look at the calibre of the manager we've got. So you have to give kudos for FSG for getting that right. The things they didn't do well, we know about that. You fancy trying to trademark the name Liverpool, that's absolutely insane to even go there and think about that. But they learn their lessons, and they have listened to the fans about the increase in the ticket prices and things like that, and the furore over the Super League. They have listened when the fans have spoken to them. There are things we would rather they did differently. they do have a capacity to some degree to loosen the purse strings in terms of giving the club money to spend, because Mike Gordon has a very big say in how the club is run. But for me, FSG, they are exactly the polar opposite of Gillette and Hicks. They're not the Glazers. We should be very grateful for what we've got. We haven't got £600 million worth of a loan hedged onto the club, where we paid £1 billion worth of interest and still have the £600 million loan in its entirety to pay. So, yeah, we can do things differently. Yes, they may have to change their model because the Manchester City model may force them to do that at some point in the future. But my friend says I'm not FSG in and I'm not FSG out. FSG could do better in certain parts. And I think that's a pretty good analogy of FSG, to be honest with you. Would I rather be where we are now? Or would I rather be where we were towards the end of the Moores family running of the football club, where we quite simply run out of money and sold it to he who shouted loudest, which was Gillette and Hicks? That very nearly cost us our beloved football club. And what these guys from FSG are doing is they're running it as a frugal business. Their whole portfolio is a frugal business. It's all done with a lot of common sense and a lot of thought and processes. And Liverpool's ideology of how they run the club is structured ultimately by FSG, but FSG don't sign the players and they don't sign the contracts. So there's no point screaming at them in Twitter because it really won't work. But am I happy with FSG? Have they got credit in the bank? For me, they've got loads of credit in the bank.
I think we'll take this as a panel. Very quick, yes or no throughout the panel. Are we getting a midfielder in January, Conroy?
Yes.
Mick's not on. Why is Mick in my mind? Why is Mick on my life? Why is Mick in my head?
You're gonna watch the power ring. What is it called? Ring of Power.
Ring of Power, whatever. Yeah, Power Rangers. You was gonna make me. You was gonna get me to watch Power Rangers. By the way, you was going. Mick, you're on my mind. There you go. If ever you doubted my love for you, son. Anyway, Steve, are we getting a midfielder in January?
Yes.
Keith. You're on mute. Pass.
I think that says all.
Yeah, maybe.
No, there's no options of maybes here, sir.
If Jude Bellingham has a breakthrough World Cup, yes. If he doesn't, no.
Jamie.
Backpacking off of Keith, yes and no. Jude Bellingham on a pre-agreement for the summer.
Okay. I think we definitely get a midfielder in January. Scott says, Grizz, who's your favorite wrestler? I thought this is okay. Favorite WWE wrestler of all time. It's got to be Ultimate Warrior for me. Just loved his entrance. Yeah, Ultimate Warrior. I don't know if some of you guys even remember who Ultimate Warrior was, but all that business. Yeah. Ilias says, should be worried about Arsenal this season. Anyone?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't win 6 out of 7 games and not be taken seriously. And they overcame a very big hurdle today and did it with quite a lot of ease, to be fair. So yeah, Arsenal will be top 4 for sure. How far they can push that remains to be seen. But take them seriously, they're a good side.
City are still levels. Let's be honest. Like City are just tearing.
I'm not trying to win the league, Conroy.
No. I don't mean you. I just think like there's never in between now, isn't it? It's like they're going to win the league on Twitter, but it's like I think they've started really well. I think Jesus is a signing of the season. Even if Haaland scores 40 goals, I think he makes a big difference to them. But yeah, very impressive. You got to give Brentford losing their 2-0 last year, getting bullied to win their 3-0 today. That's a big redemption is the wrong word, but it's a big changing of the guard this season for them. So yeah, I think they'll be top 4.
Keith.
Pains me to say it, but they look incredible. They have players that can play multiple positions, players that we would...
No, this question, Keith.
This question. I thought we were talking about the Arsenal one.
No, Scott Diaz, no. We're not going to waste that much time on Arsenal. Conor already gave
in answer to this question, the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns will not lose a single match between now and WrestleMania. So Logan Paul's going to show a great match, but Roman Reigns comes out victorious.
Do you think Liverpool should break the bank in January to get Jude in January? We all nodding yes.
Absolutely, because if we don't, we're going to have a major fight with Real Madrid over this guy. So as soon as we get an inkling that whatever conversations we've had give us a green light, we spend what it takes to get him. Otherwise, there's a chance we don't get him.
I'm sure I've been. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, Grizz. I was gonna say, Steve, I think it'll be like what happened with Luis Diaz, that as soon as we know there's a hint of significant interest, we'll try and play close to our full hand to get the deal done. And if that means breaking the bank, I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool spends more on Jude Bellingham than we spent more on Darwin Núñez this January or in the summer.
I've probably been clipped up so many times, so I'm ready to get clipped up again. Jude Bellingham will be a Liverpool player. Do you know anything about João Gomez rumors? No. Too many wrestling questions. Thoughts on the... Shut up, Omar. Do we play 3 at the back when we return, Grizz? Have we ever played 3 at the back, guys? Is there any idea, hints of Jurgen Klopp? Just because I picked, with the help of one amazing caller, we picked a wonderful team with 3 at the back. It roughly consisted of, I'll repeat it, Konate, Matip, Virgil, Robertson or Tsimikas, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Thiago, Fabinho, double pivot, Jota, Diaz and Salah. I think it would be amazing setup. I think it could work, but Jurgen Klopp, no. Mr. Sinclair sends in a super chat, says Konrad Laimer, 25, is a free agent in January. Do you get him in January? Keeping in mind next summer there's 4 players moving off, which will be 3 midfielders. Konrad Laimer was very much of interest. He made it very clear that he wants to go to Bayern, and we pulled out. Konrad Laimer would be a brilliant player under Jurgen Klopp. Do you think Bejitic is preferred over Arthur? Anyone?
Right now, yes. Who knows what the future holds?
This is a whole show. Gentlemen, can you pick an all-time Premier League 11 play against your 2019 to present Liverpool team? We shall do that.
Can make a note of that, Grizz.
We should do that. Yeah, but a lot of these have been done. I don't like doing boring content everyone else has done. You know, that's...
We could introduce that in the draft.
Guys, be a bit more imaginative. Best 11s have been done. You know, I'm not about boring best 11s. That's like Conroy. All right, if Conroy wants to host one of those. Conroy loves doing best 11 ones.
I've got enough quizzes in draft to work with.
Yeah, exactly. Best free signing ever.
That's a
Liverpool.
Joe Matip.
Sure? Not flavour of the month? Maybe last week. Okay.
I'd say James Milner's up there.
Yeah, I'm definitely up there.
Chris says, how many signings do we need to get back to the Champions League and Premier League winning ways?
Well, last season that we had the squad that almost took us to those exact ways. So it was literally the same year that all of that did happen in May, if I remember. Mm-hmm. These players are good enough. Absolutely, they're good enough. That can't be brought into question, I don't think. We'll see. October is probably one of the most crucial times ever in Jurgen Klopp's reign, I feel. Because between with all these games coming up, they could literally turn the season on its head. And all of a sudden, we'll be going back to what we were talking about before, which was we just need to win again. I mean, last season, Grizz, if you collected all the videos we did last season, RedFellas and everything, yeah, and the amount of times we were talking about another win and another victory with the same squad, literally in the same year.
We started the quest for the quad about 12 to 13 weeks out. Do you remember? And we said dream until we can't dream no more. Do you remember, guys? And we didn't stop dreaming because we didn't stop winning. And this is the amazing thing about this team. We started off as a joke between us. Do you remember? We said, let's dream until we can't dream no more. People keep asking about the quad. Is the quad on? Is the quad alive? Is the quad realistic? And we said, until it is realistically possible, mathematically possible, then you can't stop us from dreaming. Until we couldn't win it no more, which was 15 minutes from the end. It is what it is. Any more? Was there any more, guys? Oh, here we go. Who takes over from Pep at City? Anyone?
Arteta.
Really?
Who was that?
Arteta.
I'll give that up.
No, I think you need to calm down a bit. We're getting that's you sounding like you're getting gassed far too quickly in Arteta.
Really?
They're playing great. How is that enough to say he's taken over a team that's won multiple championships? I think this is the problem with football now. It's extremism so quickly.
World Cup winners.
France.
Yeah, probably France.
Brazil.
Maybe Germany have got a shout because I think they've got a bit.
If Brazil don't win it, with
why do you think Brazil? Why do you think Brazil would win it? They've had a great squad every World Cup.
But for me,
I'll throw Argentina.
You're going Argentina.
I think France. Deschamps get a team full of 11 players who are brilliant to play in a low block hard. You can't beat, and they'll win the game 1-0. Brazil will play open, expansive, get caught.
But this is it. Brazil won't play expansive and open. They've got absolute dogs of war in there, Conroy, with the likes of
Still got a Neymar who'll take the ball 30 yards further back instead of playing a system to win a game. France
Let's see.
It'll be good though. I think Neymar will be brilliant. Don't get me
Vinicius, Neymar, Gabriel Jesus. Woohoo! No. You've got some talent there.
Oh, no, definitely. I just think France, they've got that pragmatism that'll win it for them. That's what I think anyway.
Have we got any more? My God, dark horses. Dark horses. Argentina don't count as dark horse.
They said Turkey at the Euros and that went horribly wrong, so I'm not going to say a dark horse shout anymore.
Uruguay? They're dead, Keith. They're dead.
No, I think.
I'll say United States make it out of the group.
Nice.
Quite a young team though, because the guy who came and changed it. They won the Gold Cup against, was it Gold Cup last year?
They won the Gold Cup and the Nations League, I believe, both against Mexico. So real high. I actually played against the kid who scored the goal in the Gold Cup when we were like 12. He's from Arlington, which is one town over from Robinson. So
that's brilliant.
I love that.
Put that in there.
That is sick.
Hansi Flick as well. That's a good shout. Jeremy's Hansi Flick's obviously the manager. That's a big thing as well.
I think Hansi Flick should be taking over one of the big boys in club football. He shouldn't be wasted on a national scale right now. But guys, I must end the show right now. Otherwise, we can talk football. The questions are flying in. I'm so sorry if I couldn't get your question through, but we tried. Thank you very much, guys. We now embark on a week that involves a possible draft, a possible quiz.
Get the quiz sorted.
And a brilliant show that I've got lined up for you guys on this Tuesday. I have taken Todd Bowley's suggestion to heart, and I have got quite the panel that will be selecting a North 11 versus a South 11. So stay tuned for that. I will be releasing who will be picking the team on my socials in the next 24 hours. I won't give it away yet, but that should be some fun. North versus South with a few twists and. So not to make it Man City, Liverpool 11 versus Arsenal, Spurs 11. There'll be a few twists and turns.
Any 4-4-3s?
Say again?
Any 4-4-3s?
4-4-3s galore.
That's the title of the show. That's the title of the show.
Great shout. 4-4-3. That's gonna be the shout. That's gonna be the title of the show. 4-4-3. But apart from that, we're hoping Evan can do one of his amazing drafts. One of Evan's close pals has not been too well, so positive prayers and best wishes to Evan and his friend. Conroy's gonna try to get
a quiz sorted.
A quiz sorted, and we will have much more to chat about over the next few days and weekend. Thank you guys for your precious time. Of course, people in the chat, if you haven't liked the stream, I don't know anymore. Like, what do you mean? Like, why haven't you liked the stream? So, but redeem yourselves. Like the stream on your way out. Join us again for another episode of RedFellas next Sunday. But don't forget, there's plenty of other shows in between as well. Take care. All the best. We out of here.